So I'm walking down in front of the famous Cascade Brewery. That's not actually why I'm here. I'm here because of this road, and it looks like a normal road, and it is, but it's also a bit of a scar because this concrete is unlike the other roads. Most of the roads in Hobart are covered with bitumen. When the tram tracks were taken up on this stretch, they were replaced with concrete. That's one of the very few clues that there were ever trams here in Hobart, even though they were here for almost 70 years. This drawing from 1879 by A.C. Cook, titled Hobart Town, gives a not unreasonable idea of how the capital looked at the time. A primitive place filled with smoke in the air and horse manure on the roads. The imagined view from the clouds was drawn just before electricity came to Tasmania. When electricity did arrive in Hobart, a group of British businessmen and local bigwigs came up with a proposal to harness it. The Tasmanian government passed the Hobart Tramways Act of 1884, but it was not until 1893 that the first tram actually ran. Even back then, large infrastructure builds had a very long timeline horizon. Urban planning go-slows have been part of Tasmanian culture since before Federation. The Hobart Electric Tramway Company became the first network in the world to employ a fleet entirely of double-decker trams, a system that would be replicated in places like New Zealand and Hong Kong. Unable to climb steep inclines, the double-deckers became unsuitable to the tram lines as they extended up into the higher parts of the city. And prone to tipping over when going around bends, all future trams would be built with a single deck. In 1913, the Hobart City Council took control, transferring the network from a private to a public entity and rebranding the system as the Hobart Municipal Tramways. They began expanding the lines in the 1920s. In 1937, they reached their maximum scope. In this map you can see how they ran from Glenorchy to Sandy Bay, with fingers running into the foothills. In 1946, the fleet reached its maximum strength, with 76 cars in total. The decline began in the years following World War II. Electric trolley buses and diesel buses came onto the scene. Made from old technology, the trams went out of vogue. In 1955, the state government seized control with a statewide statutory authority, the Metropolitan Transport Trust. In 1960, the MTT decided to close the last of the tracks. In October that year, people came out to watch the very last tram run through the city from the CBD out to Springfield. In this part of Sandy Bay, we've got the concrete, just like we do in South Hobart. It was poured here when the tram tracks were taken out. There's also this part of the hill behind us that's missing, and that's where the cut was made to make way for the trams. When you look around now and you've got a truck coming past every 5 seconds, followed by maybe a four-wheel drive or a school bus, it's very easy to romanticise what trams were like. In the aftermath, some of the decommissioned trams have been saved as museum pieces, being kept in various conditions. Some trams were recycled to make new buildings, like this hut at Interlaken or this home at Verona Sands. A lot also ended up being exposed to the elements left out in paddocks in rural areas, many of which were destroyed in the 1967 bushfires. As late as 2018, they were still pulling forgotten tram tracks out of the roads in places like Murray Street. For the benefit of tourists, the Hobart Explorer coach tram tours decided to dress up a bus and call it a tram. So I'm here on Augusta Road in Lena Valley. This is the Augusta Road cut, and it's the biggest scar left over in Hobart from the time that the trams were here. It's all very much gone, and people kind of remember trams being maybe a bit better than what they really were. It's worth remembering that when they did go, people were actually pretty pleased to see them leave, because something really bad happened, a very bad accident. On the 29th of April 1960, tram 131 was travelling north up Elizabeth Street. Near the intersection of Warwick Street, the tram was struck by a lorry during evening peak hour traffic. The crash cut the brakes inside the tram, and the tram, filled with passengers, began to roll backwards. Some managed to jump off the vehicle before it gathered a lot of speed, but mostly the tram remained full. Despite being dazed by the collision, and rather than jumping clear himself, an heroic figure emerged, tram conductor Raymond Donoghue. Guiding the remaining passengers to the furthest end of the tram and telling them to crouch behind seats for safety, he took to the rear end of the tram as it was rolling backwards. Now on the steep decline, the tram began to build speed up to an estimated 80 kilometres an hour. He continued to ring the bell to warn other motorists while simultaneously attempting to operate the emergency handbrakes. Towards the bottom of the hill, near Bathurst Street, the 131 tram stuck the 137 tram that was sharing the tracks. The trams telescoped into each other and were projected almost a full city block before finally coming to rest. 43 passengers were injured, 3 seriously, but they all survived because of the actions of Raymond Donoghue. He, however, was killed instantly. Right up until the very last moment, he did everything possible to protect those around him. Raymond was survived by his wife Eileen. At the time of the accident, the Donoghues had 4 sons and 2 daughters. A third daughter was born 3 weeks later. Praised in the coroner's report for great fortitude in the face of imminent danger, Raymond Donoghue became one of only 23 Australians to be awarded the George Cross, the highest Commonwealth award for bravery available to civilians.